Yes, indeed. Welcome, world. How are you today? Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to lesson number 10. I can't believe I'm saying that. Welcome to lesson number 10 of our first trimester in 2025. We do this every single week, bringing you nothing but everything that we have worked so hard to put together in our musical careers, bringing you nothing but the finest information that we can conceive to bring you every single week. Here today at Wednesday, 4 o'clock p.m. is my slot, and I'm really excited to be working with you every time. Big shout out to our friends who make it all happen down in Brazil, NGO Radio Terra, Banda Terráquea, Lon Bové, Ivanzinho, just the whole group, everybody. I love you guys so much. So today is lesson number 10. We're talking about fills, and we're talking about chops, when and how and why we use them. I'm going to just kind of demonstrate some things, go over them, show you some sticking, show you some patterns. You know, fills and chops are really as subjective, almost as subjective as it comes, because they really are your moment as a drumming creative to shine. But one thing that we probably want to decide is if, like, what type of drummer are we? Are we chops forward? Or are we groove forward? Are we a blend of both? I know a lot of drummers who are like, man, later for that groove stuff, it's all about chops. I know some drummers who are like, later for that chop stuff, it's all about groove. And then my favorite type of drummers are the ones that really know how to chop out and really know how to groove super, super hard. I think as a young person, as a young developing drummer, it's easy to get confused about what's really important in drumming. And I'm here to tell you, as someone who's more further along on his path, not further advanced, but further along on his path of drumming, that it's not about chops, right? Chops don't make the people dance. What makes the people dance is the groove. However, depending on the genre of music you're playing, like in jazz or fusion or gospel, or some world music genres in cultures like Greece and the Balkans, playing a lot of notes might be what the style requires. And that can lead you down the chops department, right? So I'm not the heaviest chops drummer, but I practice enough to the point where I can play the ideas that are in my head to the best of my ability. And my muscles are developed to a point where I work on them every day. So when I do have a rhythmic idea, I can just disseminate it, right? So I'm going to play a little bit. I'm going to groove. And then I'm going to start incorporating some fills. And I'm going to talk to you about why and how. And I'm going to go from kind of easy to complex. when we do employ fills after a certain amount of time of playing a groove, depending on the style, we want to make the fill appropriate for that. One of my favorite fills of all time, and I believe that this is invented or coined by Chuck Brown, the go-go funk pioneer, and it's sort of an onomatopoeia, which is hot chop barbecue. So, or, 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 some version of hot chop barbecue. Okay, I've also heard the onomatopoeia be Pat Boone, Debbie Boone, right? But I like hot chop barbecue better. So, put it in the groove context. Hot chop barbecue. Hot chop barbecue. So there's no rhyme or reason. Let me say it this way. Every musical situation is different. So when you do play your fills, could be totally different than in another genre. But usually we throw a little something spicy in there every 4 bars or every 8 bars or every 16 bars. If nothing gets thrown in and it's just groove, it does start to miss a certain level of dynamic interest. Right, so if I go for too long, you might be interested in the groove, but you're going to want to start to hear some fills. So I like to try and incorporate the groove into my fills, right? So let's take this kind of this drill. It's a drill pattern. One way of developing a cool fill out of this, which sits nice in the groove, is to keep this right hand rhythm going the whole time. Right? So let's take another groove, for example, and try the same concept. So that's a really simple, basic way of maintaining the groove, but just take your right hand off of the hi-hat and put it on another drum, keeping the same rhythm, and boom, you've got a fill. Let's take that example and also add in the hot shot barbecue. You get the point. So keep it simple. Keep the groove inside of your fills whenever possible. Let's talk about some really, really classic drum break fills that you can use as chops inside of everything you do. So let's look at the intro to Rock With You. Right? Michael Jackson. So we can put this in anything, and then we can also use it in solos. So See what I'm saying? You can get really creative with that. Okay, so let me break it down for you. So kick, rough, single stroke, right? With the accent on the end of that single stroke. Right? And then a flam. So I guess it's a 5-stroke roll with a flam on the top of it. So flam, and then the kick at the end. So in a sense, it's sort of like a mirror image of itself, with a rough going into it and a flam going out of it. So you can get really, really creative with this, and you can kind of take this example and run with it, right? Let me think about another fill that I really like. Okay, cool. Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe. So like, that's so iconic that you can play that on a gig. You can play that in a drum solo. You know, you could be going. And the crowd will go crazy. You could be just and then or, you know, you could go. Right? You can mix those two things up. I hate when I do dumb things. Anyways, that was a very dumb example, but you get the point. Just trying to mix it up, trying to mash it up. Is there another one of those classic fills that can also turn into a chop? There is the Phil Collins fill. is sort of like just talking about fills or talking about chops from a fill perspective, because when you look at these ideas, it's really just a chop, but we call it a fill because people would say, hey, play that fill in the top of the song for me real quick, or play the Belle Biv DeVoe Poison fill, or play the Phil Collins fill, but they don't really think about it in terms of a chop. And I think of chops as in terms, I think of chops as a language. You know, it's one of those things where you just start to flow with it. So I'm not the choppiest guy. You can call me Dad Chopper right now, but fact of the matter is that chops is like your own language. Chops is how you take all these fills and these ideas and sort of how you construct a bit of a drum solo throughout your experience. So if you have like, take anything, pick a series of strokes between your hands and your feet, and then turn that into a chop. And start slow. So I'm gonna go right, foot, left. So right. Let me add something. Let me go right, foot, left. Right? Turn it into a chop. Turn it into something else. So, or I like that better. So, pick anything and then just go off on it. So, let's pick something else. Because clearly I didn't like that, nor could I play it. So, let's do a double stroke roll between our hand and our foot. So Put it on both hands. Same thing with the paradiddle. We can use a paradiddle as a chop. That wasn't exactly a paradiddle, but let's see if I can work this out in a different way. So, I guess the take-home message for fills and for chops is find your own voice and figure out what works for you. Everybody's not meant to be a chopper. Everybody should be a groover, though. And I think that if you can pull off all the chops with inside the groove, it's beautiful. But emphasize that groove first and foremost. I know that's my strong suit. Grooving is my strong suit. I have a little bit of chops. And it's not my job to necessarily have more chops than the next guy, because I know that the band leaders who want those seriously chopped out drummers are going to hire them anyway. But what makes me happy is knowing that I've got a good mix of the two things, at least I feel. I'm always working on more facility and more technique and more chops, but that's secondary to my desire to make the thing groove and feel really good. So let me go ahead and put on the click and groove out, add some chops and fills wherever I see fit. Little hot chop barbecue for you. Little rock with you. to express to you is that depending on how powerful you want the fill to be, use single strokes, double strokes, or paradiddles to determine the strength of the force. When you use singles, it is stronger than when you use doubles. And then a paradiddle is, of course, a combination between singles and doubles. So let me just show you, for example, single strokes. Double strokes. Right, as opposed to right? So that's really important to distinguish that. And then, of course, the paradiddle. It's sort of like choose your weapon, right? Choose your weapon when it comes to how you want this. That was the same, basically the same exact fill, just done with 3 different stickings. So. Now that's a little ridiculous. That's a lot of different fills back to back. But you see what I'm saying? The difference between the power and the strength between a double, a paradiddle versus a single stroke roll is really quite obvious. So definitely get all of that together. And one of the best ways that I've learned to keep all that even is to just practice to a click, going up and down the subdivisions of these rhythms. So. So you see how that works. That is essentially how you can get your fills to tighten up and be more on the grid. And then, of course, there's the last little part of this thing, which is about how you phrase what you do, right? You could phrase any of these things to feel differently, right? To play this right on the beat versus, you see what I'm saying? Same rhythm, totally different phrasing. So it's important that when you make a fill, that it's right on. Or maybe even laid back. As opposed to totally different feel, right? Totally different fills, or totally different feels for those fills. So check that out. When you're going in for your fill, try and place your fill in the phrasing that you'd like it to be so that you don't rush or drag. Just stuff to think about. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I've gone over my time. I really appreciate you for being in tune with NGO Radio Terra's free lessons for all levels and all ages. Every week I'm here at 4 o'clock on Wednesdays, bringing you everything that I know, and I really, really love doing this. So come and hang out with me again. Big shout out to our sponsors, NGO Radio Terra, Proel, Roland Corporation, and Tamburo Drums. Love you guys. Thanks for helping me sound great with these amazing pieces of gear. Much love. See you next week at 4 o'clock.